based on everything we're talking about right now, just goals. I mean, you have to have those goals. You got to get that lined up. I think it's so important to sit down, and I basically broke it down into like that dream phase, and then into the goal phase, and then into the plan phase. Write down all those things, and then and then the next page is all about the goals. Like, okay, so my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, like what are my goals and what I would like to accomplish?
Welcome to the Boise REIN Show, your destination for creating wealth through connections in real estate and business. Are you looking to become a real estate professional? Do you want to start your own successful real estate business? Well, I'm your host, Matt Osanicki. Join us as we learn from the brightest minds, industry leaders, and experienced professionals, equipping you with the knowledge and confidence needed to make informed decisions and thrive in the ever-changing real estate landscape. Your journey starts now. Welcome back to the Boise REIN Show. I'm so excited for you guys because we brought Molly Arnott on today. She is a member of the Boise REIN community. She's got a lot to share with you guys today, and I'm very excited to hear her story because today we're going to talk about what it takes to build wealth in real estate. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen over a year. You have to learn your systems. You got to learn your networking, who you can trust, who you can use. You got to figure out your finances, and that all comes with time. And in today's story with Molly, we're going to dig deep into that so that we can have a better understanding on how we can set our goals to meet our real estate investing future. So without further ado, Molly, thanks for coming on. If you wouldn't mind getting the guests up to speed a little bit, where you came from, how you got started on this path. Did you have a W-2 before this? Enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, sure. I'm not that old, but I have been doing it for, I guess, 15 years now. And we started not having any idea what we were doing. I had an uncle who had a couple rentals, which he lost in the '08 crash, which kind of put a bad taste in real estate investing for everybody. And, we just didn't really have anybody advising us or giving us, ideas about what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. So we had been dating 6-7 months when my boyfriend, then now husband's dad, was encouraging us to buy something. It was '08. Prices were down. And he said he'd give us the down payment, like 20%, like a down payment, And we were like, oh, okay, well, here we go. Let's do something,
Did you guys know anything about real estate at this time?
Nothing. Like literally nothing. And, like my parents had bought the family home I grew up in when I was like a year old, and they had lived in it for, at that point, like 20-ish, 21 years. And that was kind of how his family had been, just like their family homes. That's it. And, there's a lot of benefit in that, especially I grew up in the Bay Area of California. So they got a lot of equity in that property, even in the down times. And so anyways, we decided to start poking around. We started looking at condos and kind of trying to figure out what we could afford. Mind you, 20% down, like we're talking like, I think he ended up lending us like $35,000 or something at the time. And we ended up buying this townhouse, like neighbors shared on both sides. Nothing pretty. You could hear everybody's dog barking. There was just people. We had an alleyway with like bums living in the back alley. I mean, it was like nothing pretty. And we were living in Sacramento at the time. And I just wish that somebody had said something to me about what house hacking was. Because with $35,000, I mean, we could have easily done like a 5% or even a 3.5% down on a 4-unit, which like the area we moved into, Midtown, was like full of those, like just full of them. And everybody was, short selling and dumping those kinds of properties. And that would have been a way better play. But
that's a good point. But you don't know what you don't know. Did you? And you didn't know anything about real estate at this point.
I mean, just better, you do better, right?
Yeah. It doesn't always happen that way. You don't know anything about real estate. You've got a great mentor that wants to help lead you guys in the right direction.
Yeah.
So
we didn't have that mentor.
You didn't have the mentor?
No, we had nobody. I mean, he was offering to give us the down payment to buy something because he thought, okay, prices are down. Everybody says this is when you're supposed to buy, is when prices are down. That was basically my father-in-law's like guidance. And we were like, okay, great. I mean, instead of renting, sure, we could buy something. That seems like a cool idea.
Yeah.
But no, like we weren't envisioning like investing or doing anything great like that. But I did watch a little too much HGTV, and I maybe tore out the floors like within weeks of buying it.
Yeah, HGTV was pretty big back then.
Oh my
but there was
gosh.
like no bigger pockets. There was no like one forum or place that you could go and ask questions.
No, and we weren't really viewing it like an investment at the time,
Right.
It was just buying a place for ourselves,
So how do you stick out for the long haul on something like that? Like,
Yeah.
why even do it?
Yeah, I don't know. We just kind of like, it was an idea that was planted, and I was like, well, the mortgage on that will be basically the same we're paying in rent. So I guess it makes sense. And moving in together made sense because, rather than paying 2 rentals, we were now going to be paying 1. So that made a lot of sense. And it was like, okay, I guess we'll just do this,
Yeah.
We weren't thinking through it as an investment.
Yeah.
But then as soon as we were in it, I was like, oh, but we could like make it prettier. And like when more we, update it, then someday it'll be worth more money. And, I kind of had a little bit of that bug.
Yes.
My dad was a doorman growing up. So I had grown up helping him install doors in these big, beautiful houses in Atherton, California, like high-end houses. So I had a little bit of like the bug and enjoyment of transforming things, spaces.
I love this story because when you first start off, you buy your first rental property.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you're doing. You don't know where you're going. You don't have any goals. You don't have
No
any
idea.
vision, but you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
You find that you have a knack for it.
Yeah.
You like doing the floors and
gosh.
watching HGTV and seeing what else
Totally.
you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just learn this overnight.
Yeah.
And you can't just read it in a book. You have to do it yourself.
Yep. It's way more fun to do it yourself.
Yeah, it is.
I also like watching HGTV, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we made a lot of ground, really beautified that place, and then ended up getting married. And I wanted to have babies pretty quickly. I was like, okay, let's do this. And my husband was like, no, we're not having babies in this 2-bedroom townhouse. Like, that's not happening. And so he said we had to have a single family home. Like, we had to have a family home that we could raise a family in. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. I'll figure this out.
Yes.
And then at this point, it was now early 2010, I think, when I got that. We were engaged and we had that. He had like put that out there, like that was the only way we were going to be having kids, was if that was the case. And I was like, okay, well, how are we going to figure that out? 2010, the prices were now down even further than they were when we bought in 2008. In order to try and sell that condo, which we did attempt to sell it, we would have had to take a hit by a good amount. I think we were going to lose like 10 grand or something. Luckily, I was working in nonprofit. I had a W-2, didn't make a lot of money. I used to work in child abuse prevention services, so I did a lot of family services stuff. And my husband was an air traffic controller, which is a government job, very secure. We felt really good and grateful for that during, that time when so many people were hard up for work. And so we had pretty consistent income. It was reliable, and we found a single family home that was bank owned. It was a dump, like a real dump. And I was just like all starry-eyed, like, I can just see what we can make of it. Like, this is the one. It's going to be amazing. It was on 1/3 of an acre. It was listed for $220,000, it was in the town of Sonoma, if anybody knows that area. It's wine country. It's a beautiful place. The idea that something could be listed for $220 now is like mind-boggling. We got into contract on it, found out the well was no good. The septic was no good. Part of the house was like falling off. I mean, this place was so nasty, rough. There was like black mold everywhere. Yeah, there was an indoor jacuzzi room. There was like carpet on the ceilings in one area. I mean, this is
Carpet on the ceilings?
like I could go on and on. Like, this place was disgusting. And I was like, yes.
These are the horror stories that people talk about.
My agent still to this day, my agent who's a friend now, back then he's like, I've never seen a house this bad. I cannot believe you guys want to buy this. Like, really? Really, you guys want to do this? Still this day, he says it's the worst house he's ever sold. I'm like, okay, well, bring it. So we couldn't figure out how to finance it. It was a cash-only purchase because no water, no sewage, nothing, Now I understand that I went for a private money lender. I called my grandma.
Nice, yes.
And I knew that she was living on retirement, that she had actually inherited some money from, ironically, some like long relative, like somebody that I don't even know, that had passed away and left a handful of properties to her and my grandma, or to my grandma and grandpa, and they didn't know what to do with it. So they like sold it all off. And then they had this like investment account, which is what she was kind of living on in her retirement age. And I knew that money was sitting in a retirement account. I was like, well, what if you lent me enough money to buy the house and fix it up? And I can do that. I like, made this whole plan, this whole goal, like within 12 months, I would have it totally fixed up. I'll cash out, refinance it, and I'll pay you back. And I also offered to pay her interest. So, because I knew she was getting, money on her investments. And so grandma went for it. I still look back and I'm like, what was she thinking? Like, oh my gosh. So she did, she went for it. And we actually ended up, we were planning to sell the condo, which we were unable to do. So that was our first real, okay, we're becoming investors now. We had to hold it as a rental. We couldn't sell it. We were going to lose too much money. And it was I think it had already been sitting on the market for, 4 or 5 months at that point. And it was not making sense. And we wanted to move into the house once we had gotten it a little bit more fixed up. And yeah, so we rented it and we actually made a little bit of money every month. And it was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea. We ended up pulling a little bit of money out of my husband's IRA, borrowing against it to have enough money to get our house all set up. My grandma did call around 8-9 month mark, and her investment account manager was like, the numbers aren't working to keep things at the disbursement levels that she needed. And they really wanted the money back in the account sooner. So we scrambled. We had to get the septic I don't know, one of the things had to be done. I think it was the well. So the well had already been done. The septic, I think, hadn't been done at that point. We were kind of like band-aiding the old one for a while, which was bad. And then we got that done, got it to the point where we could cash out refi. So we ended up, after negotiations, when we bought it, we ended up at $186,000 when we bought it. And when we did that refinance at the 10-month mark, I think it was, we were at $415 at that point.
Oh.
So we had done it.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't even done. We were nowhere near where we wanted to be with it, but it had a kitchen. One of the bathrooms had been really well updated. We'd done enough that we were just so proud to we have a house. We actually ripped off a whole section of the house. There was so much rehab involved in that, but I'm so glad we did it at that point in our life because we were young, we were stupid, we didn't have kids, we didn't know any better.
This is perfect. This is I hope everybody heard that story because this is the epitome of what it means to be a real estate investor. You guys learned everything yourself
just doing
by
it.
taking action. Yeah. It's so important to take action.
Yeah.
You learned that you couldn't sell the condo because of the market. You learned the market was bad.
Yeah, oops.
You became a pseudo investor because you had to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't afford to buy the house because it was an all cash offer. You learned how to do private money.
Yep.
I
don't like to take no for an answer. So I was just
right.
okay, well then how else?
It's not I can't, it's how can I?
Yes. Always.
You learned how to rehab a property, which became, you did the BRRRR method.
I did.
Before the BRRRR method was even a thing.
Live-in BRRRR, yeah.
A live-in BRRRR, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I really want to just emphasize that that's why it's so important to take action.
Yep.
And that's what you guys did. Yep. So by this time now, you're probably feeling, hey, this real estate thing is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I wish I had really spent more energy at that point because that was still, I was 2010, 2011 when the house was getting, pretty close to being done
Sure.
at that point. Ironically, we got married in 2010 and then my husband had started developing apps for the Android market and he had one of the first solitaire apps on the market, which started bringing up in some pretty great income. And it was just a side gig thing he was doing. And he tried to convince me to buy a rental property. He's like, we're making a little bit of money on the place in Sacramento. That's been a good thing. I feel like we should maybe pick up another house. We've got some money in the bank. And it was me who was I don't want to do that. Which is so ironic now.
The real estate agent with their own team and the investor
and obsessed with investing.
Yes.
I was it was to not go too personal, but we were trying to have a baby and we weren't necessarily getting pregnant right away. And I was well, what if we can't? What if we end up having to spend a lot of money on fertility treatments? And my brain was so not there. I was it was only about family. I was only no, the only thing that matters in life right now is about growing our family. And I just couldn't get my head there. And so we traveled instead, which there's pros and cons to everything. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. We have so many beautiful memories from the travels and the great things we did before we had kids. But damn, I also wish we'd bought another house.
The best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago, but the next best time is right now.
Yep.
And if you just keep that mindset, because I feel the same way. I'm sure a lot of listeners out there, you feel the same way. But that's why we have to take action today.
Yep.
Network, talk with your friends.
Yep.
Start taking action.
Totally.
Okay. So you rehab your live-in BRRRR.
Yeah, live-in BRRRR.
Yeah. Okay.
We actually, when we did that cash out refi to pay out back grandma, we ended up being able to pull out more cash to finish the house and really make it nice. We put this big beautiful deck on the back, redid the backyard, really just, it was a beautiful home. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we stayed in that house until 2014 and then we decided to do it again. Why not?
So 2 years later, after you said family, you're like, let's revisit this.
We had my son, my first child, and our family was kind of on our way. And then I got an itch. I was like, let's fix up another house. And I want to live on acreage. And I want a creek running through the property. And I started getting...
So these are the beginning stages of your visions and your goals.
Mm-hmm.
If this works so well, what else can we do? Yeah,
and so because I had this dream of really wanting property, here comes in the next version. Still didn't know a thing about Bigger Pockets. This was the next, mini genius that came to me. I was like, well, we have enough money when we sell this property now to have enough, for a large down payment. We can buy $1 million property now, but I can't afford $1 million mortgage. I think we were paying $1,700 a month or something on that house with our mortgage. And so I was not comfortable going up a lot more. And so that's where the whole little bit of house hacking came in. I was like, okay, so we've got the down payment on the big, beautiful property, but we're going to have to figure out how to have income on that property. And so we bought the next property was 12 acres and it had a giant shop on the property with a 1,200 square foot apartment on top of it. And now we had another rental, and that rental paid for more than half of our mortgage. And I got to live on 12 acres with a creek running through the property.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we fixed up that house, did kind of rinse and repeat, fixed up that house, sold that house after a few years. We ended up buying another house. Similar idea, kind of rinse and repeat on that one. This one had a detached garage, but was not a rental. So we purchased it. We turned the detached garage into a rental property in order to get that rental income to pay half of our mortgage in that situation. And so, yeah, we kind of stumbled into this like cool little idea of like, you can have acreage, you can live on big, beautiful properties, but not have to pay that big mortgage. And so, but all of our equity was tied up in these properties. In order to live on the big, beautiful properties, you had to have a good amount of equity dumped into it and stuck. And so then when we had the opportunity and vision to leave California, thank goodness, and came to Idaho, we sold all that. And, you know, we definitely considered buying another big, beautiful property when we first got here, but we got smart. We finally like let the emotions, you know, come down. And I, you know, this was 2020. So I discovered Bigger Pockets in 2018 when I got my license and could see things a little different at that point.
It's time to start taking things seriously.
Yeah. So we moved into like a very, you know, meager, like single family home in a neighborhood. My first time ever living in a neighborhood, a subdivision. Like,
yeah. There's a lot to learn coming to a new place.
Yep.
And not even knowing where the grocery stores are or everything. Like you grew up in California. This show would not be possible without the support from our local community. Because of you, we're able to share information from leading professionals like never before. That's why our sponsors at Boise Turnkey Investments and Your Stay B&B have teamed up with the Boise REIN Show. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, they help bring you all the insider information to get you started on your journey today. Back to the show.
Yeah.
So, Molly, that was a great story.
Yeah.
Layman's terms, from the investor side.
Yeah.
That's like, what, almost 10 years?
Yeah.
Worth of like...
The house hacking world, we actually did do one professional flip in there as well, where we like purchased something that we didn't live in and flipped it and made a little profit there. Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of like that first decade, you know, maybe even 12 years was really like live in flips, kind of house hacking, like very, you know, like not really know what we were doing, but just kind of stumbling our way through it. And then, 2018 is when I started to get it.
Yeah. Which is the hardest part, getting those first few properties under your belt.
Yeah.
That is the hardest. It snowballs from there.
Yeah.
Because you've learned your systems, you learn what you're good at, what you're passionate about.
Right.
You have a great network of people that you surround yourself with. Oh my gosh,
finding good people to help you, like the people who do the work, who actually help you, like finding good people is so freaking invaluable. Yeah. Because you'll also find the ones that you don't ever want to work with again.
And that's another valuable lesson as well.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
So for those just getting started, it doesn't happen overnight. You have to take action. You've got to put in the work.
Yep, trials and errors.
Real estate isn't hard. It's just hard work.
Yeah.
And there are more millionaires made through real estate than any other asset class. Go real estate. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so 2018, you mentioned you got your license. You're starting to take this a little more serious.
Yeah. And
then you moved to Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little bit of the background of me getting my license. My second child was born in 2015. And, you know, my husband's an entrepreneur. Like we've had Amazon businesses. He's had software businesses. We've had a lot of things. He stopped working as an air traffic controller in 2015. And we just focused on our businesses. And that was both a blessing and a curse because now, like, we had to make it happen in order to pay our bills. And that was the first time we'd ever been there. And we had a business that went belly up and kind of knocked us down. And we had gone in a lot of debt, like $100,000 in debt. And that was really a hard thing to swallow. And once again in life, we were able to refinance that $100,000 into our mortgage, and we were okay because we had built so much equity in that property. And, you know, like there was just always real estate kind of kept being like the thing that worked and that made sense. Like when we looked at our lives together, it's like, yeah, the thing that just keeps making sense and helping us through every life phase is the real estate. So 2018, I discovered Bigger Pockets. I don't even know how I stumbled on it, but somehow I stumbled on Bigger Pockets, and I was like, this is all I want to do.
Right?
Like I'm obsessed. Like I just obsessively listened to every episode and was like, this is where we're going. And so somewhere along the lines, Brandon Turner was like, yeah, if you want to do it, get your real estate license. Why not like be all in, you know, like that makes sense. And
burn the bridges.
Burn the bridges.
Let's do it.
And so I did find out I was pregnant with my third, which was, you know, a little bit of a happy surprise. And so I knew we had to get serious about like making sure our finances were a little bit more like even keel. And so I got my license and really did dive in. And so we did do that professional flip that first year and started focusing more on doing it intentionally. It's when I first set my first goals around real estate investing rather than just stumbling through it. I was like, okay, let's buy out of state investments and they'll be long-term rentals and I'll burr them from afar and it'll like be amazing. And none of that ended up happening, but
Yeah. But what I am hearing is your mindset is starting to shift.
Totally shifted right around that time. Like this was like it. I knew that this was the direction we were going to go and that this is what was going to give us the freedom that we had really been craving, rather than like feeling beholden to like even a business that had been kind of tough or being beholden to jobs, or it was like I could see the light at the end of the tunnel that like we could really experience a life where we knew where the money was coming from. We could spend more time with our kids. We could, choose what life looked like. And that's what we really wanted.
And I appreciate you talking about the debt and the businesses that you guys have built too, because when we think about mindset and shifting from one set of maybe like a 9-to-5 job or a W-2 or maybe your contractor to an entrepreneur mindset, money will come and go.
Yep.
What will not leave you is the education that you build through all the actions that you've taken.
Yeah. Learning like the game of money or the, the rules of it.
It's an invaluable lesson.
Yeah.
You can't learn it at college.
I'm still learning, but
We're learning every day.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to learn how to earn and make money in this business. And there's so many different people to learn from too. Yeah. You get yourself up into a bigger pond filled with bigger fish. You're going to learn from them.
Totally. Yep. Start networking. And, it's one of the beautiful things of finding bigger pockets and entering into the investment world is like, they're telling you every day on those podcasts, get in rooms with people who are doing what you want to do. And so I did. I started showing up at networking events and I started making friends in the real estate space. And all of a sudden, your worldview just opens up. Like what I used to think was possible was so much smaller from what I think is possible today. And I mean, not to get too like deep in the weeds here, but the internet has really made that possible. YouTube videos, podcasts, like we just have access to seeing so much more than we did, even 15 years ago. When we first bought that condo, HGTV was basically my inspiration. That was it, right? Yeah. And now it's like, man, I can learn from the best because we all have access to that at our
I do want to make a point on this, though. You're right. We do have so much access to education, information, which can cause analysis paralysis. That's so hard.
Yeah.
Everybody gets shiny object syndrome.
Totally.
Especially in like a market like we have today.
Yep.
We talk about creative financing, trying to leverage what's going on. Like
right.
You could be a flipper one moment, try to do wholesaling the next moment, try to do sub 2 the next moment, like just moving from place to place. But what I like about your story is you became a realtor, you started a team, and you stayed focused and committed to going full bore towards that.
Yeah.
And to stay consistent throughout the years.
Yeah.
Which I think is so important in today's industry. It might be the wrong answer. That's okay. Stick with it.
Right.
Build those systems.
Yep. Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting my real estate license was definitely going to be the access to having the funds to keep the real estate investments going. And so, first I figured out how to sell real estate. That's kind of the first step. Did that for a year and a half, 2 years, and then kind of started going the team route and starting to build out, like you said, those systems and processes and having more support so that I could still be a family person and be with my kids and spend time with them and enjoy what life has to offer, but also be able to leverage my time and be able to be in more places and do more things. And so real estate has been the access in every which way. And so, by selling a certain level, I have now extra income to set aside towards more investments and keep focusing on those goals. And so that's been more my path the last few years has been selling and really helping others. I do a lot of relocation, but I also, my heart is always going to be investments. It's where I first started. It's just the heart of everything. And more than anything, it's funny because you talk to a lot of agents who are like, oh, those newbie investors, they're a lot of time, they're a lot of energy. And I'm like, they're my favorite.
They're the best.
They're the best.
They are.
Yes, there is more time involved in like educating and maybe holding hands and a little bit more of that. But like, there's just no better satisfaction than seeing somebody come to me, be like, I want to do it. Like, I see what you're doing. I want to do it. I'm like, cool. Here's the path. Like, like helping them really figure out what their strengths are and what they're up to and what matters to them. And, like really help formulate a plan that is the right plan for them. And then helping them go get on that plan and execute it. I'm like, it's a win-win. I'm making commissions. I'm continuing to feed my goals while also like feeding my soul, which is helping those people get up and running.
I can hear the passion when you tell this story.
I freaking love it.
Freaking love it. So you had like 10 years of experience in real estate inadvertently already.
Yeah.
and you're able to leverage that as a realtor going into the market and helping others.
Yeah.
And then you decided to form your own team because you wanted to help people like you make success. So you have your own team right now, XO Real
XO
Estate?
Real Estate, that's us. Yep. Right now it's just me and one other agent, and then we have 2 support staff that are full-time and kind of handle everything in the background. And then we also have my husband, who he would not like me to declare that he's a part of the team, but we couldn't do it without him. There's no doubt about that. He's the tech guy, he's the one who's like, he's way more system oriented. Like, I can do systems. Like, if you hand me a system, I'm all about it. I will rock that system. But like, building it is kind of like pulling teeth. Like, like I know we need them. They're important. They make everything work. But man, that's tough. So he's better at that. And
this wasn't going to be the topic of today's conversation.
Yeah.
But a whole different side subject. It's amazing what couples can do when they get into business together. Yeah. Especially when you can leverage each other's strengths.
Absolutely. And it took us a long time to figure that out. I mean, we've been doing it a while with all the businesses he's run and all the things we've done. There were times where we, because people tell you that, like, oh, like, it's so hard on a marriage to like be in business together. Like, I guess, I don't know, maybe in my world, we were told that a lot, like that it's like really hard and that it can be hard on your marriage and don't let a business ruin your marriage. And so we had actually had a lot of boundaries around that for a long time, like honestly, up until just the last few years. It was like, no, okay, well, your role is that, my role is this. And it was like really separate and really, like trying to do that. And then really in the last few years, we've gotten better at being like, okay, well, what if we did this together? We leverage that you're better at the tech, I'm better at the people. Like we kind of started to like how to figure out how to mix our strengths together and really do things together. And we're so much better. We're so much better at that. Like leveraging that is so great. I couldn't agree more. That'd be a whole separate podcast.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it grows your marriage closer together. Yeah. And there's all those naysayers, like you said, like, don't let a business ruin your marriage. It's because they had one bad experience and they didn't want to take the risk to try to do it again. Well, they didn't want to try.
And just like business, marriages are work, like you put in the work and you figure out why the conflicts are coming up and why those things are happening, because then when you can work through those, you have a stronger relationship on the other end, just like you have a stronger, business on the other end. Like when problems arise, when you work through them, when you fight harder, you tend to come out with something sweeter and greater on the other end.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
So because you guys work so well together and you've built these systems and processes over the years, it really affords you guys the time and opportunity to help others now.
Yeah. That's the vision. And so what I'm kind of working on, obviously, I'm going to keep selling real estate. I'm going to keep my team growing. But I've definitely started to kind of hone my passion for helping early investors, for going, really diving deep in educating people and helping them see what's possible for them. Like my husband and I, neither of us came from much money. We came from very middle-class families, very blue-collar. And I now see a whole different future for myself. And we already live a different future. And I want others to see that. I don't think you have to be anybody special to become a real estate investor and like build a life of your dreams. Yeah. It's not going to happen overnight. It will take time. It will take work. But I just think that basically anybody can do this, like if you're a welder making 40 grand a year, like it's possible for you too. You're going to start with a house hack, like, depending on who you are and what your strengths are and what you got going, like there's a path for you. And I get most excited about helping people find that path and get them on it. And so I'm currently working on developing like an online course to inspire newbie real estate investors. I mean, I really think house hacking is probably the first step for most people because it's so brilliant.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you bring that up because I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Let's make this an exercise real quick.
Sure.
I am a new investor. Okay. All right. You started a course. You just talked about house hacking.
Yeah.
What's something that I could do today that could get me into my first investment?
Okay. Well, I have a lot of questions about who you are. So you ready for that?
Yes, I am. Let's do this.
Okay. What are your skill sets? Like, what are you good at? What does your life look like?
I'm a W-2 employee.
Okay.
I'm career orientated.
Okay.
This is my first time investing.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of money to start. Mm-hmm. But I know that this is my path forward.
Okay.
I just don't know what path to get on.
Are you handy or not?
I'm not that handy.
Are you interested in becoming handy, or are you kind of like, I don't want to do that?
I'm not interested in being too handy. Mm-hmm. I worked hard my whole life.
Okay.
My parents had me working in the garage, working on cars. I'm good with tools. I've just never done anything in real estate.
Okay.
I see them do it on HGTV all the time.
Sure.
I'm good with paperwork. I'm good with systems. Like, let's go close a deal.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get started on that. How do I get started?
So for this avatar, I'm like, I think we're going to look at maybe like a fourplex. And we're going to house hack it. You're going to start there. You know, doesn't need to be anything that needs a lot of work. You know, if you're not feeling like that's like your thing where you want to like dive in and do the value add thing, let's start there. Let's get you into a fourplex. You're going to house hack it. In my, you know, a couple of years ago, I would have said you could even live for free. Ha! That's not so much the case anymore. I could get you living for the same amount you would be renting for, and you know, get you at that even point. When rates come down, you'll refinance in the next couple of years, and then you're going to move out. You're going to cash flow when you rent the unit you were in, and now you're going to go buy your next property, whether that's something you're going to live in that's a single family. Maybe I get you to do another house hack, keep collecting those properties. But that's kind of the path I would start that, you know, you on in that avatar. You know, obviously if I come across my handy ones, I'm like, okay, well, is flipping going to make more sense? Is setting into a value add, you know, like especially here locally in Boise with the ADUs being
that's huge.
A new opportunity.
Yep.
In city limits, you know, like buy a house that has a detached garage and get yourself an ADU, you know, and that doesn't necessarily have to be done by the homeowner, although it'll be cheaper to do it if you do it yourself. But, you know, those are kind of the conversations I usually am having. And then also who they are in their own family life. So I will say that it's not to generalize, but I tend to find when I'm trying to talk to a family who have like 3 kids, they're less interested in like house hacking a fourplex. They just are. It's like less common.
Very true.
So do you want to get into maybe a family home that has like a unit above a barn or something, you know, those types of house hacks that you can house hack at so many different levels. There's like $2 million horse properties that you can house hack and live virtually free in if you can figure out the down payment, because you can have the horse boarding on it and you can have the Airbnb in the barn and you can, you know, like there's so many different ways.
Yeah.
So,
but house hacking sounds like a general theme.
yes. I just think that it's the easiest, most no-brainer access to getting started.
And there's some things that you have to learn in doing so. So you can spend your time and energy and effort learning those things like, okay, I need to figure out my lending processes.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to fix maybe a couple things in the property.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to be a landlord for the first
You're
time.
going to have to like maybe deal with a disgruntled, you know, renter at some point. And
you're going to be busy.
it's it's such a great like easing into an investment world, you know?
Yeah. I personally have been a house hacker.
Yeah.
Still am a house hacker.
Yeah.
I still move house to house.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
it's just so logical.
it is. And the low down payment, like you said,
Yeah.
it's you count it as your primary resident.
Lower interest rates, especially in today's market, is so critical. I mean, you're a veteran, so you can get some sweet loans.
It's pretty nice.
But you know, even the FHA loans, I mean, the interest rates are like almost a point difference. Like it's a no-brainer, the lower down payment and the better interest rate, so lower payment.
Yeah.
And you don't have to live there much more than a year, so
right.
Go on and
so there's no
do
excuse to get started.
Yeah, even for families, like depending on who they are, like if it's a family that has a bunch of kids that is not super keen on that idea, but they're like really passionately wanting to get into investing and they're maybe not handy. They have got the W-2 job, so they don't really have time to be like value adding or doing these other things. I'm like, can you just give it a year? You know? Can you just give it a year?
Yeah.
Because if you can just, you know, push through 1 year of living in that fourplex or whatever you decide to buy, you're setting yourself up for the future. Because
huge.
Even if today you're going to be right around that break-even point, that's not what the future looks like. That's today. You're starting at that point. Now, if interest rates improve, which we all assume they will here in the next couple of years, you can refinance and now you've got more cash flow. Also, with time, you pay down your balance with your renter's income. You can always refinance when your balance is lower. I mean, there's so many options for the future. And again, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Like you have to get that in years, you know.
Yes, you have to start thinking in years and decades instead of today.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point of your story. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you can envision what future you looks like, and I'm talking to the listeners right now, envision what that person looks like. If that person is somebody who has 10 properties and they've become a successful landlord and now they are closing deals quicker than they ever have before, how does that person live every day? Well, every day they're taking action. Every day they're taking steps that build their systems, build their processes.
Yeah. Or backwards.
And that future self starts today, starts with the action you take today, just like what you were talking about in your stories.
Get going. Just do something.
Yes.
Whatever
so
that is.
If you are trying to roadmap your path forward, can you talk to us a little bit about goal setting that or coming up with a vision on how you do it and how or maybe how you're going in the future?
Yeah. So for our investments, we came up with a plan at the beginning of this year. So I'd set a plan back in like 2018, 2019 that was like so beautifully far-fetched. I had a dream. I think I actually still have the paper, and it is still on my refrigerator because it's like a reminder of like where we started and where we're, knowing where we're going. And so what's funny is I originally had dreamt we would buy out-of-state properties and we would BRRRR them. And I had accelerated like, okay, the first year we need to buy 8 units or eight doors, and we need to be making $150 profit per unit. But then the next year we need to buy 16, and then the next year we need to buy 32, and the next year that was 64. Like I was going to double each year, and now even now I'm like, gosh, that was crazy. And we never did it, but it was like I had to put something in front of me to look at that was like the goal of what I want to make happen. And so when I look at how much income was going to come from each of those investments, like each year, how much we were going to be making. When we moved to Idaho and we, reorganized our investments and started buying a few houses and getting going here, I realized that because we've done short-term rentals, which have a really nice cash-on-cash return, I was like, we're kind of like in year 2 or 3 of our old plan if I just go based on my monthly cash flow. And I was like, hey, that doesn't suck. Like, look at us go. But our vision has changed a lot. We just, got totally derailed. So we kind of brought it back this year and started over with like, okay, based on where we are today, what is our vision for the next 5 years? Like, how are we going to hit that financial freedom goal that we're all dreaming of? And so we wrote it all out. And so that looked like we were going to be buying 3 properties this year. And basically for me personally, what we figured out is for every $100,000, we want to be making $20,000 a year in passive income. So the idea is this year we'd be putting out $300,000 in investments, and we have an IRA that we were pulling from, hoping to still get money out of a cash out refi on one of my properties, and then also just savings from living below our means. And we started working towards that. So 3 this year felt doable because we had these kind of 2 other sources that we could pull funds from to buy. And then 1 property a year for the next 4 years would get us to 10 investment properties. And with a 20% cash on cash return, that gets us to one of our properties makes more than that. So it would get us, my personal financial freedom number is $250,000 a year. And that's the number that if we're making that, I feel like we get to choose, like I'll still keep selling houses. I love my team. I love what we're doing and how we're inspiring other people and helping them. But then it's like, there's just so much more choice around what life looks like. So that's our future and what we're up to. We did buy 2 properties in Nebraska this year that are both short-term rentals, and they are doing really great. We're super, super happy with those investments. And so, we're looking to get 1 more in this year and then 1 more a year going forward.
That's awesome. I want to go back to your 2018 goals.
Yeah.
And to right now.
Yeah.
And this is for the listeners out there. This is why goals are so important. Even goals are meant to be unachievable.
Yeah.
And so are yours.
You got to start somewhere.
Because if you're not aiming, how does the saying go? If you're aiming for the moon and you miss, at least you'll hit the stars.
Amen. Yes.
So you have to have something to keep working towards.
Right.
And that kept you going. That kept you invigorated and enthusiastic to do it. And now you can look back on those goals saying, man, I didn't achieve them, but we're going in the right directions.
They got us going that way.
The goal was the what I wanted.
Yeah.
How we got there changes.
Yes.
So write your goals down today.
Yeah.
That's super important because you have to steer your ship before you start rowing. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere.
I can't remember where I first saw it, but there's like some like meme or something that gets passed around the internet that says something like, first there's a dream, but then you break it down into a goal once you have like something tangible that you actually want to achieve, not just like, I want a life that looks like, living on a yacht or like whatever it is that your dream is. Goals are like actually a tangible thing that you can envision having and being. And then in order to achieve a goal, now you have to put a plan in place.
Yes.
And so you have to start with the dream. To me, like I feel like that first goal setting was kind of dream oriented, but there was a number. I wrote down that 250 even back then. Maybe it said 200 back then actually. It went up a little. It'll probably keep going.
That's good.
Right. But then, the goal was there. I knew kind of what direction I wanted to go towards, and that was great. And I feel like, obviously so much has changed in my life. My business has grown and many great things have happened and our investments have done well. And so now it's like, okay, I've got a new baseline. Then the goals we set this year were they're the most tangible goals I've ever experienced in my life. We just stay on the path we're on and we will achieve those goals and we will meet that.
And I attribute all of that to the evolution of you and your husband becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And investing in real estate.
Yeah.
You learned so much by taking action.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of action,
yeah,
we're gonna end the show here because this has been a wild success, and I think a lot of people are gonna get a lot of good, useful information out of this. So, if there is one thing that our listeners could do today, an actionable item step that they could take, that would get them closer to their goals tomorrow,
sure.
What do you think that might be?
Well, based on everything we're talking about right now, just goals. I mean, you have to have those goals. You got to get that lined up. And so I actually have, if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, I actually have a goal setting manual I created when I did my own goals this year. And I shared it with our local Boise REIN meetup in January. And I'm happy to share it with anybody who wants it. But I think it's so important to sit down, and I basically broke it down into like that dream phase and then into the goal phase and then into the plan phase. So you sit down and you write down all those dreams, like uninhibited, like write down all of the crazy things you want, like write down the fancy car, write down the silly, like what your house needs to look like, and like write down like the dreams. Like actually on my dreams for this year, for this last 5-year stretch, I want to go to Bali. That's on my list. Write down all those things and then and then the next page is all about the goals. Like, okay, so my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, like what are my goals and what I would like to accomplish? Like, especially like looking at that dream list, where can I plug and play and see like where I can fit those dreams into a goal? Like something that's like tangible. Like I'm going to actually like, I want to go to Bali by the end of the 3-year mark, like that's going to happen for me.
Yep. So how do I get there?
Yeah. And then you switch over and you start looking at plans.
Your plan.
And now it's like, okay, well, somebody who's going to Bali or, going to own 7 investments by my 3-year mark. Okay. 8 by then, what kind of person do I need to be? What kind of actions do I need to be taking on a monthly basis and on a weekly basis? And sometimes even a daily basis in my real estate business. That's how far I break it down. Like, what am I going to do every day or every week or every month that is going to get me to those goals? Now you've got a real plan, and that's how you achieve your goals.
Yes.
You have to have a plan. And so you got to work it backwards. And so that is what I think every newbie investor should be doing, is sitting down and working out those goals.
And this is exactly what an entrepreneur looks like. They are intentful with their life.
Yeah. Intention is everything. I mean, you can have high, big dreams. It's a beautiful thing, but you got to like really be like, okay, how's that going to happen? How am I going to be like, no, I get to say my life. That's the whole freedom piece that I just always come back to, is that I want to be able to say how my life goes. And so I can't just like hope that that's going to happen. I have to sit down and map it out and make sure I'm at the source of that.
That's right. And for those listeners out there, if you're wondering how to get started, start writing your goals down today.
Yes.
Start taking action. Reach out to Molly. She already has the playbook in her hand for you to fill out.
Yeah. I'd be happy to share that with anybody.
Yep. And take action.
Yeah.
And get your first multi-unit.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, Molly, it's been a real treat having you here today.
It was
it was a huge pleasure of mine. Yeah. And if people want to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. I mean, I know I feel so silly saying it, but like Instagram is like all the rage these days.
Yeah.
Probably the easiest way to reach me. Shoot me a message on Instagram. It's at Molly Arnott Realtor. So really easy to, as long as you know how to spell my last name, which is Arnott. Molly Arnott Realtor. I'm on Facebook as well.
Boise REIN Group.
Yeah, you can find me in the Boise REIN Group. I'm always in there chatting with people. Yeah, I mean, hit me up. I'm all over the place.
Awesome. And we'll put all your information, too, in the show notes
That'd be
below.
great. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, Molly, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
This is awesome. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.